Joining me right now, they are in a car heading to a show that is going to be taking place very soon, are Barry Darsow and Bill Eadie of Demolition. They are Axe and Smash. And Barry, I think you have the phone right now, but give me a little lay of the land. What in the heck is going on right now?
Right now, we're dead stop in a traffic jam. We're trying to get to the town, but you know how Chicago is. We just flew in. I flew in from Minneapolis, and Bill just flew in from Atlanta. And it was Southwest Airlines, and there's not a whole lot of room in those seats. But we're happy to be here, and our driver is one of our very good friends, Mitch, who's a wrestler. In fact, when we get to the show, he's wrestling, and Axe and Smash are going to go out to the ring with him and hope that nobody tries to cheat, because we're going to stop them.
No, and you always have. What is the show? Tell me where you're headed. What is the show that you guys are going to be involved in?
We're in a show. It's in Princeton, Illinois, and it's to raise money for a bunch of kids there. So it's every year the show goes on. So it's a big crowd.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the show? I think Jerry Seinfeld has. It's good. Comedians in cars having coffee. This is a little different version. I think we're going to call it wrestlers in cars having a few beers. You guys, is that happening right now, or is that from days gone by?
I can't say that we're having beers in the car because it's illegal to drink and drive.
Well, you're not driving.
Right. Yeah, well, here, Axe has something to say here.
Okay.
We obey those open container laws, too. We don't want to get in trouble.
No, we wouldn't want that. But it's funny how things change. That's Bill. How are you? Good welcome.
Good, man. But we just saw there must be some kind of an accident, because we saw about 15 police cars going down the road. Maybe they were chasing people who were drinking beer. I don't know.
No. Well, they weren't chasing your car. But it's funny how things have changed a bit. You know, I was thinking, since we're starting in a car, I want you guys to remember back, because a lot of people don't really understand or appreciate what you guys went through on the road up. And I mean that by getting to the heights that you guys reached. A lot of that education took place on the road. Do you have some very vivid memories of life traveling in cars with several different personalities that we have come to know over the years, that some stories that really stand out from some of those road trips?
Well, you know, Barry and I and Fuji traveled together for years, and we used it as a skull session. You know, we'd have our match.
Yeah.
Fuji would critique it, constructive criticism most of the time, and then we'd digest what he said, and he'd say, delete this, add this, tweak this. So, you know, because we were interested in having the best match we could possibly have, if possible, the best match on the card. So all those hours back and forth on the highways to and from, you know, you can waste them or you can utilize them and learn from them.
Yeah, and it really was a classroom. I've heard many superstars and also, you know, other professional wrestling personalities say that is where they learned, because they'd get around these veterans and they were sponges. And it not only did they learn in the ring, but those sessions, considering the thousands and thousands of miles that you guys covered going from all these different towns, really was a classroom in your education about ring strategy, you know, the psychology involved. Does that really stand out from those trips?
Oh, yeah. You know, this is Smash again, but, you know, and then back like, you know, before we got in the WWF back then, when wrestling was real, you know, the baby faces and heels never got together at all to talk over the matches. But every once in a while you'd go to town and you'd meet at the rest area, and one of the baby faces would get in the car and ride with you for about 15, 20 miles. You'd kind of go over the matches, and then you'd stop off at the next town and drop him off, and then your partner would get back into the car again, and then you'd know kind of what you were going to do that night.
and made sure nobody saw you do that, right?
Sure. If you get fined or you get fired, or I mean, that was a bad thing if the heels and baby faces were together. You could never show up in the bar.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how serious was kayfabe back then? Because not so much that, of course today it's a lot different. But when people were out, I mean, that was something you took very seriously, and I mean, right into the locker room that existed back then.
Well, yeah, the baby faces would be on one end of the building, the heels on the other end of the building, and at night after the matches were over, if everybody went to a certain bar, if a heel was in there and a baby face came in, the heels would run out of there. You weren't allowed in the same place as them.
Right.
That's just how it was. If you were caught, you'd be fired. That's how serious it was.
Yeah, and that until the big change happened that we saw in the 90s. But guys, if you've listened to my podcast before, one of the things that people really are fascinated about when they hear about some of these superstars that they were absolutely enthralled with during that period of time, which who can argue? The 80s and the 90s were certainly the golden era of professional wrestling. But they love to hear about the road that you traveled. And Barry, I know that, early on, and I know you went to high school, Robbinsdale, and that was people still hear about who your classmates were, But I want to hear first of you, and then I want to hear from Bill. But tell us a little bit about that road, that early road that you traveled.
Well, I'll tell you, a road that what really helped me out a lot. I was a power lifter from Minnesota. When I got to Bill Watts' territory,
yeah,
you had to drive 70 and 80 miles an hour to get to these towns. And because if you were late, you got fined $50 or $75. But back then, you only made that much money that night in the town.
Yeah, exactly.
And I met superstar Billy Graham down there, and I picked his brain unbelievable about training and everything. I got to be really good friends with him. And then, being with, the missing link back then, and then being with, traveling with Ernie Ladd and really learning the business, being on the road was what really taught you how to act in the business and learn. It wasn't just the ring that you had to be good at it. It was outside the ring and, how you treated the veterans and, you learned all that stuff. So the road was so important back then, where now I don't think it even matters.
Yeah, but even before that, I mean, what even got you interested? I know you attended that high school, and it was, for whatever reason, a lot of these guys ended up there because it was a hotbed, first of all, for professional wrestling with Vern Gagne. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking way back. Well,
way back.
Yeah, Kurt Hennig was a very good friend of mine, and he was 2 years older than I was in school. So I grew up being around Kurt and, went to the same high school and everything.
Yeah.
And I was always telling him, Kurt, you got to get into the wrestling business. Because I used to go down to the Minneapolis Auditorium, and I'd watch Larry the Axe Hennig and Harley Race and the Crusher and the Bruiser. And, I just loved watching it. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if one of my friends got into wrestling? So that's when Kurt went into Vern Gagne's camp, and we used to train together at a place called the Gym. And that's where a lot of the athletes train. And then after Kurt got in, I was working at a bar with the Road Warriors and Rick Rude, and right. Eddie Sharkey, he was the bartender there, and he was the one who trained us in. And so we all got in the business at the same time. But it was being around Kurt and, watching his dad wrestle and all that's kind of what really got gave me the bug to get into the wrestling.
But a lot of those guys, I mean, they had the lineage already. Like you mentioned Kurt, and a lot of these other guys that were at that high school at the same time, Richard Rude, as he was known with the two O's, but he was Rick Rude as we eventually knew him. Brady Boone, Tom Zank, I think, was there. John Nord.
Nord.
Yeah. And at the time in high school, I mean, did you guys look around and go, the professional wrestling is part of our blood, or I mean, when you look at it, it must have been, you must have had an incredible amateur wrestling team. Were people involved on the team there, or was it completely different than that? It was, part of being part of the business.
Yeah, everybody played sports, and when we were in junior high, we had a health teacher. His name was Jerry McFarland. He was Mr. Minnesota, and he was a weightlifter, and he made this gym at the junior high. It was the nicest gym probably in the country. And all of us started lifting weights, in like 8th and 9th grade. And, by the time we got to high school, we all were, built pretty good. So it was kind of like pro wrestling's the way to go, or pro football, or pro something. But, that's kind of what started at Jerry McFarland back in junior high.
Yeah. But did you even realize at that time at the high school that you had these incredible people around you that would have such an impact? Because you mentioned the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, and you tell people all these guys you just mentioned were at the same high school.
Well, Hawk was actually at a high school that was close by ours. He went to Henry High, and Joe went to Irondale, which was another school. In another place, but when we all got out of school, we all knew each other, but
bouncers together. So.
Zink and all us guys, we all went to the same school. Yeah. It was a rough crew when we went to a party where somebody had a keg or something. I'll tell you.
How bad? I can't even imagine what that must have been like. Well, I've
had the greatest life in the world, though.
Yeah. But it progressed from there, and it seemed like it was kind of your destiny with all those guys. Of course, Kurt was part of his family anyway. But what was it that really got you caught up in it? Because you said you kind of fast forwarded there and how you got into it as far as professionally. But what is it that really got it going that you started even experimenting or stepping into the ring to see if you could do it?
Once Kurt got into wrestling, it was the greatest thing in the world, seeing one of your very good friends, best friends in that business. And then it was kind of like everybody said, well, shoot, if Kurt can do it, we can do it, And then when Eddie Sharkey just happened to be there to train us, that's really what it was. It was pretty exciting back then, being 20 years old and going to a wrestling camp and meeting all these wrestlers,
Yeah. Incredible. Now, what about Bill's road to at least getting to, because I'm always fascinated, like, how did that happen? Because I know he was a great athlete, where you make that transition to, the world of professional wrestling.
Well, I sort of backed into it. I'm from a little town south of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And of course, Bruno Sammartino was the legend in that area.
Yeah.
And it's sad that he just passed this week.
Yeah.
And Johnny Valiant as well. He was in the territory at that time, Pittsburgh. And a good friend of mine and we played football. He was at Penn State. I was at West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And his dad, Marion Klingensmith, was one of the state athletic commissioners in Pennsylvania, in charge of boxing and wrestling.
Yeah.
So we came home in the summer after school, and Mr. Klingensmith asked me and his boy if we wanted to go to the Civic Arena and watch some wrestling matches. I said, well, I guess. I don't know. My grandmother and grandfather were big wrestling fans, but I had never seen anything other than, I've never seen a live show, just a television show.
Yeah.
So we went to the Civic Arena down there in Pittsburgh, and our first day we get to go back into the dressing room because he's the commissioner, and he's going all this licensing and stuff. And Guido Mongo, who eventually became my partner, my trainer and my partner,
right,
came up and asked us if we were workers. And I said, no, sir, I haven't graduated from high school, from college yet. So I didn't know what that term was.
Yeah.
He sort of looked at me, and we were big guys, football players.
Right.
So he said, "Were you interested in wrestling?" And I said, "I don't know much about it." And a couple of days later, we're at his gym in his home. Both of us are training, and 6 weeks later, we're in the ring wrestling each other. So we both sort of backed into it.
Yeah.
And then his partner, Nikolai Volkov at the time, was Beppo. They were getting ready to go overseas, and Nikolai got thrown out of the ring and got a ruptured spleen.
Mm-hmm.
So Guido calls me and said, "You want to go to Japan?" I said, "I guess."
What the hell?
Come to my gym. So I got there and he shaved my head. He said, "Grow a mustache. You got 4 weeks for going to Japan." So I was in Japan for 8 weeks and beating up people and didn't know what I was doing, and I was in main events.
Wow.
Because Guido was there. But then, that's how I got into it.
You talk about it seems like opportunity came along or things happen by chance, but I've always been a believer that the door opens, you put the foot in, but once you get through, you got to be able to do it. And what do you think separated you guys, and both of you, because the break started coming, but you had to back it up, you had to have some talent. What do you think separated you and allowed you to start to become among the elite that were out there at the time?
Well, we've talked about this a number of times, Barry and I, and one of the things that made us unique was we had no egos other than for the team. You got guys now that they don't know what to do. They're in a territory and they just throw them together. Yeah. Both of them are going to be individual stars. Well, They may be, but right now they're a team and they should act like a team.
Yeah. But early on, though, Bill, and before you even met up with Barry, that you had to climb that ladder along the way. And, like I said, you get opportunities. Like you say, this Nikolai got a ruptured spleen. But what made the difference, though, for each of you individually? Because you had to get to a point where you were even on a stage like that allowed you to excel.
Yeah, I think that Barry hit it earlier. When I was being trained by Guido, he said, "Keep your ears open and your mouth shut." Mm-hmm. Pay attention to what's going on in the locker room. Be respectful and absorb, like you said. Be a sponge, and you got to practice your skills.
Yeah,
guys try things now, and we see it all the time. They try something the night of an event. Well, that's what practice is for. That's what the gym's for. Don't try something in the ring and hurt somebody before you can master it. And I think that our opponents and the guys that we were around, I think they respected our effort that we put into it. We trained. We tried to present ourselves well. We didn't backstab anybody. We didn't badmouth anybody. Both of us, and I can speak for both of us on this, we let our ring ability put our foot forward, not our mouth, not holding somebody back, not telling stories behind somebody's back, not trying to get ahead of somebody.
Yeah.
We never went to the office. They'd have to call us. We figured if we do it in the ring, they'll notice it, and they did.
Yeah. What were those early years like? I mean, both of you certainly had a number of gimmicks, but I think the ones that really stand out, for Barry was Crusher Khrushchev. You were the Masked Superstar. There were others. But what did those years teach you to get you to the point where you were the caliber that could step on the stage in the WWF?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I was in the Charlotte territory, Ivan Koloff was my partner back then.
Yeah.
And I learned so much from Ivan. You know, when you first start in a territory in the business, you learn a whole bunch of stuff, and then you think you know everything. And then you go to another territory, and all of a sudden you go, God, I was doing that? You know, you learn so much in that second territory, and you go, holy cow, I didn't even know how to work back then. Then all of a sudden you get to the next territory, and it's the same thing. By the time I got to Charlotte, I could work pretty good, but it was nothing until I got with Ivan is when I really learned how to work and learned the real thing about wrestling. And then at that time, I was very confident, and we were a really good team. It was kind of like Bill and us, you know, Bill and I up in the WWF. Ivan was that same way. We worked really good together. We weren't selfish. So that's what got me ready for the WWF. And when I got up there, I can remember the first day I walked in, and, you know, and thank God, you know, I met Bill before that, and, you know, everybody knew he was going to be my partner, and I was this young guy. I was like 25 years old coming into that territory, 26 years old. I walked into the dressing room, and the first guy I see is like Paul Orndorff, and then Jimmy Fly Snuka, and I see Andre the Giant, and I see Hulk Hogan, and I'm like, holy cow, now I'm in the big leagues. And thank God Bill was there to help me learn that next level after being Crusher Khrushchev with Ivan Koloff. I mean, what a you know, that was like everybody's dream was to get to the big leagues, the WWF, and I made it there. So it was a really big thing.
And, you know, and a lot of people, if you compare it to professional sports, other professional sports, I should say, it's like working in the minor leagues and you want to get to the big show. And that is exactly what happened for you guys. And Bill, I know that early on, you know, you were in the IWA, and you mentioned Guido, and I think your tag team partners as Bolo Mongo, and you know, your team with him. And you're known for some of these incredible matches. You would do these 1 hour cage matches, which of course you certainly couldn't do today. But to give people some idea of what it was like in the ring back then, that you could do these matches. And I've talked with several other superstars about this as well. It's a lot different as far as when you have these audiences where there's not 50,000 or 60,000, even 10,000. That's where you learn how to really, what it comes down to, control an audience, how to bring them up, how to bring them down, how to get the heat, how to, you know.
You have to learn that, and I tell you what. The best times I had in the business, other than the WWF, but learning the craft in Georgia, in the Mid-Atlantic area, because you're in the same towns every week, so you can't do the same thing. You know, you're in New York territory, you might be in L.A., and you might not be back in L.A. for 3 months. You might be in Chicago. You might not be back in Chicago for 3 months. But you're in Atlanta every week. You're in Augusta every week. You're in Charlotte every week. You're in Fayetteville every week. So you've got to learn how to work, and you've got to expand your match, condense your match, change your match. And George Scott was instrumental. George Scott would make us, I know me, write down the finish that we used in Greenville, the mask that I wore, how was the finish received, what didn't work, what did work. And I kept a diary for about 4 years, and he'd say, okay, you're going back to Greenville. When was the last time you wore that red mask? And I could look in the book, and it was, well, it's 10 shows ago. Okay, don't go in. So everything was part of your presentation. By the time I got through Charlotte and Georgia, when I got to New York, I mean, it was really easy. Of course, you know, I knew all the guys.
Right.
And it was just a matter of there you could have a match. You could have a similar match all around the circuit because you were only going to be there once in that 2-3 month span.
Yeah. But Bill, explain to people, because if you tell people, like I mentioned, you did 1 hour cage matches. I think you even had 90-minute cage matches with people like Blackjack Mulligan, and for them to try and grasp that, because can you imagine today having an hour and a half cage match, but you kept that crowd along, right?
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
The first one we had, it was a culmination of a big angle with Mulligan and I.
Yeah.
We had gone through a series of probably 50 matches up to that point, and this was going to end the whole series.
Yeah.
First one's at Norton Arena in Raleigh. Like Barry said, 2 separate dress rooms. Mulligan's over in his dress room. I'm over in mine.
Yeah.
Tommy Young's walking back and forth. And Tommy's a nervous wreck. He said, you got to go on pretty soon.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, Tommy, what's the finish? So he said, I got to go find out. Comes back a little bit later and he says, you're going an hour. I said, quit ribbing me. Nobody had gone an hour.
Uh-huh.
And we went 12 hours over the time frame.
Wow.
One of the houses kept going up. I thought George was nuts, and so did Mulligan. Almost punched George out because he thought he was brilliant. But the houses kept going up, and George says, we're coming back in a 90-minute cage match with 2 referees. So we did it, and the houses kept going up.
Now, how do you hold an audience? I want people to understand, because today, with the attention span in the ring, if they're not doing these high spots, flying off.
Exactly.
How did you hold an audience?
You've got to get a situation where, Mulligan had the claw.
Yeah.
So he's attempting to get the claw on me, and I finally evaded. And then finally, maybe 15, 20 minutes into it, he slaps that claw, and the people think it's done. And, I'll pull him back into the ropes inside the cage, and the referee will make him break it. Well, they're hoping, come on, get it back. And then I had the Cobra at that time, same thing. I try to get it on him. Pretty soon you got 59 minutes, 60 minutes, and the bell's ringing, and the people aren't happy because nothing happened. So then they come back with a 90 minutes. And then we were going to come in with no time limits.
Yeah. And
George Scott was their special referee. This was in the summer in the South, and Mulligan had gone from about 350 pounds to about 300 pounds. And I had gone down from about 315 to about 275.
So you're in good shape.
Yeah, but I was exhausted. We were, and I was praying that we weren't going to do the no time limit.
Right.
But it served a purpose because George had this in mind. I was going to lose, which I did. I was going to leave and go to Georgia, which I did. Supposed to be there 6 weeks, and a bunch of guys come in and they jump all over Mulligan and hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
He called. He says, I don't like this guy. We've got unfinished business, but I respect him. Would you be my partner? We came back in and we set the place on fire.
Wow.
There was nothing settled between Mulligan and I. So there was always that, well, what if they turn on each other?
Yeah.
So there was a story there. They don't tell stories.
I was going to say, you could tell stories back then. Good Lord.
The next week they got the greatest pay-per-view, and then next month they got the greatest pay-per-view, and the next month they got the even greater pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Well, they're not all good.
Well, and also we didn't have the internet back then. We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have everything where you could know everything. You had to wait, and it was like Christmas by the time you got these 2 guys in a ring together that had been, this feud. Yeah.
So, Sean, now I got to try to up what Bill is talking about with all these Broadways he was doing.
Yeah.
I got a good one here. Me and Ivan Koloff against the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah.
We wrestled almost an hour on TV in the morning on WTBS. Then we went to, I think it was Augusta, Georgia, in the afternoon, wrestled an hour Broadway there. Then that night we were in the Omni and wrestled an hour Broadway there. 3-hour Broadways in one day.
Wow. So, I mean, how were you able, like I said, that's the thing I people don't really understand, that the psychology in that ring, it wasn't so much what the action was going on, it was the drama of it. You could have an arm bar and hold that, for 10 minutes, it seemed like sometimes, but they had the audience. And back then it was that connection. I don't know how else you explain it, but that psychology is not there today. And that's, I don't know.
Yeah, I had a guy that was called Ivan Koloff.
Yeah.
He was a machine. And all three of us just followed Ivan, and it was unbelievable. I never ever thought that I would ever go an hour match. And it was nonstop, hour too. It wasn't just laying down for 15 minutes and doing stuff. You got a hold and you fought out of it, and then you did something, and it was that's where I really learned, and that was how I learned the craft to get up to the WWF at the time.
Yeah.
Was because of that. And the rock and roll is phenomenal,
Yeah. Well, and when you arrived, it is amazing what happened. Before we get there, and folks, we are this is a special edition of Primetime with Sean Mooney, because we have Axe and Smash of Demolition in a car right now, traveling to a show outside of Chicago, and they're sharing some of the treasures of memories that they have from their rise to the WWF. Before we get to that arrival, I did want to ask Bill that I know that Andre was a very close friend of yours, Bill, and that, and of course we remember Andre the Giant being slammed by Hulk Hogan. The torch was passed at WrestleMania, but Hulk Hogan was not the first to slam Andre the Giant, if I am correct.
No, he wasn't. I don't know. A lot of people give me credit, but I think Don Leo Jonathan was actually the first. But I thought it was a rip. Andre and I got along real well, and you weren't going to do anything to Andre that he didn't want you to do.
Yeah, exactly. No kidding.
We're in the middle of the match, and he said, "Slam me," and I heard, "What?" He said, "Slam me." And this is when he was over 500 pounds.
Wow.
And slammed him, but, I think Don Leo was actually the first. Of course, Hogan probably takes credit for being the first, but he didn't give that honor to many people, no.
No, I was going to say, how many are in that club? It cannot be many.
I don't really know how many, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but I don't think it's very many. And like you said, Andre never did anything that he didn't want to do, or if it wasn't somebody that he respected or was really wanted to help put over, and that's a great honor. I mean, and I know you were very close to him. It's kind of poignant at the time because that documentary just came out, and I know that you were close to him.
Story, but we're in a new building in the Carolinas, and every time Andre came in, he wanted to work with me, which made me happy because I knew that it was going to be good paydays and I was going to have good matches, and he was going to, make me look good too.
Yeah.
We go into the first opening night of Greenwood, South Carolina, brand new Coliseum. All the big wigs are there. The whole Crockett's are there. And George Scott's there. And we're in the dressing room there again, different dressing rooms. And Jimmy Crockett come over and he says, "You know that Andre doesn't like to go that long, Bill." And he said, "Whatever you do, make sure you go at least 10 or 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't say anything. And we're in a tag match. And it was me and Mulligan against Andre and Igor. Well, Andre didn't like Igor. Matter of fact, he didn't let Igor in the ring at all. So we're having the match, and it's sold out completely, jam-packed. And about 5 minutes into, Eagle was on the side trying to get in. Andre stayed in. Me and Mulligan worked back and forth. And Andre, I'm in there with him. And Andre said, "Let's go home, boss." And I'm thinking,
how many minutes are you in?
About 5 minutes.
Okay.
But I said, "We can't go home." He said, "Let's go home, boss." I said, "Okay. What am I going to do with him, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to giant at me."
Right.
So we did the finish, whatever it was, DQ or whatever. We go back to the dressing room. Andre goes to his dressing room. Igor sunders off somewhere. And Mulligan and I are in the dressing room. And Jimmy Crockett comes in and he's cussing this and that and that. And blah, blah. I told you, blah, blah, blah. I said, "Jimmy, there's a real big guy. You can't miss him in the other dressing room. You tell him what you're telling me." And that was the end of it.
And I don't imagine that he went over to that other dressing room.
No, he never went over
there. That's right. The boss. He called everybody boss, but we know who the boss really was.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But how did that relationship how did that develop over the years? Just from working together, or what was the connection that really connected you and Andre?
Well, the first match I had with him, there again, I think it was Greensboro.
Yeah.
And Andre liked to drink a little bit, and one of his requirements in the dressing room was to have multiple bottles of whatever he was drinking at that time. When I first met him, he was drinking cognac, so he had to have 12 bottles of cognac in the dressing room. And he played cribbage and drink the cognac. Of course, I didn't know because we're in different dressing rooms.
Yeah.
He comes into the ring, and this is the first time I met him. I'm in the ring, and his music's playing, and there's this colossal guy walking down the aisle, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell did I get myself into?
Yeah.
And he steps over the ring, and he comes up to me. I'm about up to his chest.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know he was a little tipsy. Well, we do a little thing 4 or 5 minutes into the thing, and he's going to slam me, but he stumbled. He was staggering, and he couldn't push me over stuff. He was losing his balance, so I put my hand on his shoulder and pushed myself up into the press position, and he looked up and he said, "Thank you, boss." And that was it. After that, every time he came in, I worked with him every time.
Wow. Well, he knew you were going to look after him.
Yeah. And I wasn't going to make fun of him. And, it was my opportunity to make extra money because you're working with Andre, you're in the main event,
Yeah. So in the meantime, you guys are working all over the place. I know that Barry spent a lot of time and as Crusher Khrushchev with the IWA, and beyond that, you had a lot of successful years with Jim Crockett in the NWA. Barry, during that run, did you see where that was going? I don't know. Tag team competition was kind of something that everybody kind of filled in here and there. Was that even on your radar when things came up? Because I know in '87, when you left there, then a tremendous opportunity came your way.
Yeah. When I left Crockett's territory, I was on the road for so long, and
right.
we wrestled every day, weekends twice a day, double shots. I was pretty wore out. So when I left, I just wanted to get some time off. But in the meantime, I talked to Earl Hebner, and he talked to Dave Hebner, and I told him, I said, I really want to get into the WWF.
Yeah,
so
it's a place to be.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought, well, maybe in a year or so I can get there and train and get myself in shape, better shape. And then Ricky Steamboat called me up and he says, "Hey Barry," he says, I talked to Hebner. I'm gonna go talk to Vince for you and see if we can get you up here. So about 2 weeks later, all of a sudden I get a call at home, and it's Vince. And he says, yeah, Barry, Vince McMahon, and I was like, holy shit, Vince is calling me.
Yeah.
And so we start talking and everything, and Vince says, yeah, I'd like you to come up to the office, and I'd like to meet you and talk to you about a little gimmick that I got going up here. And I said, well, Vince, I'm pretty busy. I don't know if I can get up there. And then he kind of laughed. I said, when do you want me? I can leave right now,
Right.
So anyways, I ended up going up to Connecticut, and a limo picks me up and get up there. And then I met with Pat and, a few other people. And then Vince comes in the room, and he had me sign this little contract saying I couldn't talk about what it was.
Right.
And he said, how do you feel about being partners with Bill Eadie?
Uh-huh.
That I would love to be partners with Bill Eadie. And
had you guys been around each other much before then?
Not a lot, but I've met Bill
knew of him, yeah.
And then I just knew a lot of people that I worked with who worked with Bill, and we knew all the same people, but we were in different territories.
Yeah.
So,
well, Bill, Bill had this. I don't know how Demolition came together, but obviously it was a great idea that had been formed, and of course, they had the Road Warriors were out there, and these powerful tag teams were very popular at the time. We should tell everybody, if they don't know the history of it, that Bill came to the WWF along with Randy Colley, and who was formerly Moondog Rex, as everybody knew him, and he was the original Smash. But apparently, people knew him too well, I guess, from his previous gimmick.
Yeah,
and this opened a door for you. So maybe, Bill, you could kind of fill that in, or Barry.
Well, they recognized Randy right away. He was their previous champion.
Right.
He was for a number of years. And I was going back and forth to Japan at the time. And the first night that Randy and I don't remember if it was Allentown or the Meadowlands, one of the two, where we did 2 television appearances. And both times the fans didn't know me because they had no reference point. I was in there previously as a mass superstar, but they recognized Randy.
Yeah.
And I told Vince, I said, it's a hell of a gimmick. It's going to get over, but it's not going to get over with Randy, unfortunately. So if you want to do it, I'll go back.
But how did you come up with? Were you part of that? Did you come up with the idea of Demolition and how it would, what the gimmick would be comprised of?
Randy had come up with a number of ideas. One of them was a lot of fur on the boots and the movie, the Mad Max.
Right.
So
that's exactly.
But I don't think it looked kind of clowny. It was like Berserker's boots, those furry boots and stuff like that.
I remember those.
Her furry jacket.
They worked for him.
They worked for him, but they weren't going to work for this character.
Yeah, right.
Many different things.
Yeah.
So we tweaked it, and then I had already committed to go back to Japan. And I think Barry and we met up in Charlotte, right? Atlanta. And
okay.
I, like Barry said, we knew a lot of people that over the years, but we had never been in time. And Vince had suggested a number of other people, but it was going to be the same thing.
Right.
The 4 or 5 people he suggested were all well-known, established people. And I said, you got to bring in somebody different.
Yeah.
And I met with Barry, and I said, fine with me if you want to do it. And it was fine with me if you don't want to do it, Vince, because I was going back to Japan. He said, well, you can't go back. I said, I gave him my word I'm going back. If I gave you my word I was coming in, you just expect me to be here. So that's when Barry had gone up. So I'll let Barry finish up.
So then Vince came in, and he had about 5 or 6 different drawings of what the character was going to look like. So I was looking at it, and here I grow up with the Road Warriors, and I knew how successful they were, but they were in that same territory where I used to be.
Right.
And so that wasn't the big leagues. When you were there, you thought it was the big leagues, but then when you got to, the WWF at that time, now it was like, holy cow. So the gimmick was kind of the same, but wasn't the same. And I knew being partners with, after being partners with Ivan, I really learned how to work. I could wrestle. I could get on the mats. I could do, have a match with anybody. And I knew Bill was like that because after watching him as the Masked Superstar, I knew that the way he worked and the way I worked, it was going to be a real team. And I was so excited. I told Vince, I said, count on me for this. If Bill wants me for a partner, I would love to be this. Yeah. And he didn't tell me what the name of the gimmick was at that time. Uh-huh. And I told Vince, I said, so when do you plan on starting this? And Vince says, well, when do you want to start? And I said, I got to have a break. I said, I've only had a month off. I said, I need to get my mind right and start training. He says, well, why don't I sign you to a contract and we'll start in about 3-4 months. Uh-huh. So then I met Bill at a TV and we talked and, all that kind of good stuff. And, we hit it off just great. And I knew the gimmick was going to be good, and it ended up being really good. Yeah,
I mean, unbelievable, actually. And at what point, like you said, you guys, all the ingredients were there. But we have seen that happen before, where we've seen people get into a ring and everything is, it's supposed to work, and it doesn't. At what point, after you guys had started working together, because, of course, the first, just to be in the WWF at that time was where you exactly wanted to be. And you would have probably said any gimmick, I'm in because you want that chance. But at what point did you guys realize we got magic here? There is definitely something happening.
Well, when we first did our first TV, Johnny Valiant was our manager.
Right.
And he was a great guy. I mean, he was really a good guy, but he just didn't fit what Axe and Smash were.
Yeah.
So we ended up, talking to Vince, and we wanted a different manager, and that's when Fuji became our manager. And it was nothing against Johnny V or anything, but it was just a totally different, gimmick with him in there. And when Fuji came in, all of a sudden, we were the tough guys with Fuji, because Fuji, nobody knew what Fuji was going to do. He was vicious and he was mean, and so that kind of really made us feel like when we wrestled, we were really Axe and Smash the Demolition. There was no acting there.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew that we were going to go a long ways, was because it was the real thing. And the way Bill could wrestle and the way I could wrestle, it just complemented each other. And we weren't greedy. We didn't want, one person didn't have to win, or, we didn't care who got beat or whatever, because it was a real team. And with Fuji being the manager, he could critique all the stuff we were doing, and tell us, hey, don't do this, do that. He was like a real shoot manager. Uh-huh. So it just worked out great. And that's when it was, that's when we knew it was really going to be the real thing.
But the other side of this too, guys, is a lot of times they'll bring in a manager because the two characters, or the character if it's a singles, can't really carry the promo side of it, which was tremendously important at that time. But I'm telling, you guys were among the best, and I'll tell you, like Bill's voice with that, you coming in was as distinct to me as Hawk's. And your follow-up to stuff, I mean, with the combination, Barry, that you guys had was really as strong as any others that we had in the WWF. And you mentioned that, Fuji certainly played a big role on that. But how important did you guys see that side of it? That because the personality side and being able to cut those promos were just, and I don't know if they have that same significance today, but back then, man, it was a huge part of what got you over.
Well, I agree. And Barry and I used to pride ourselves in the fact that we knew where we were going to be, who our opponents were going to be, and we had to stay within our character. We're not going to tiptoe and dance and this and that. We're going out and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We were a little vague sometimes, and I learned a very important lesson from Wahoo McDaniel. Wahoo, as you know, and the fans probably know, was a well-established babyface. And he always said, if you're a heel, you can get away with a lot more. You can BS once in a while.
Yeah.
But if you're a babyface and you promise the people something, you better do it or you're going to lose face. So we prided ourselves in the fact that we would study, not hours and hours, but we knew who we were going to go against. We knew our history with the guys. We knew what was going to take place. And we knew that we had to be in character. And we took pride in one-take promos.
Yeah, no, I remember them distinctly. And that's and another thing is that they weren't scripted. You guys had an idea of where you were going, but that's why I really think it was gold. I looked at a few guys. I have to tell you, I looked at a few over the past week, and really, I'm not kidding. And I still remember vividly. There were those that that I thought were good, but top 5 and singles and tag teams, you guys were there. I'm not kidding, because that is an art, and I don't know if it's a lost art today. Maybe they just don't give them the chance, but it really was.
But Sean, too, it wasn't just the wrestlers. Like when I was talking about getting up to the WWF, it was the greatest thing ever. It wasn't just the wrestlers that were pros. It was you guys. You and Gene Okerlund and the referees. Everybody was at the top of their games, and to make the interviews good, it took you guys asking us the right questions, doing the right things to lead us into a lot of that stuff too. So it wasn't
so much a part of it, though. I really believe they've lost a lot of that today. They certainly do a lot of this backstage stuff, and but those promos.
It's a lost art.
Yeah. No, it really is. And I talk to people they ask me all the time, did they tell those guys what to say? Did they, and that's the thing about these characters. Now, certainly the WWF created gimmicks for these guys or whatever and said, this is what it is. But it was really up to those individuals to create that character. And they lived it, and they were able to, to really express it. There wasn't some writer out in the hallway saying, okay, this is what we're doing with you guys now. Here's what we would like you to say. You would go in there and say, all right, go. And you knew the storyline. And I mean, that's why I think that that kids and the people that were enthralled with that era, they bought every bit of it.
Right. Well, it was kind of like when we were in the dressing room, and the minute you put the paint on and the steel spikes and all that, we actually became those two guys. Yeah. And that's what I think made it so easy for us. We were really those guys when we put that on.
Yeah, exactly. So moving along here, and it propelled you guys into the top of the talent in the WWF. And when you won the Tag Team Championship in 1988, really, as far as professional athletes, as far as professional entertainment athletes, to reach that point, were you able to look around and say, yeah, we've reached this pinnacle, that we've reached this point in our careers that many never even get close to even getting a chance to do it?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Sean. When you're in the forest, you don't see the trees.
Yeah.
We were too busy having matches and traveling and going from town to town.
Yeah.
And really, it wasn't until after, we do these signings and we're still well known, and we haven't been there for over 20 years.
But at the time, do you remember, though, just how huge it was? Because I remember, being at some of those pay-per-views and just looking around like, my God, what this is as big as any other, the peak of entertainment. There was, where else you have, 80,000 people, and it's covered by, every mainstream sports outlet. Did you look around and say, wow, what this business has become?
Well, I was amazed that we were given the opportunity, but I think we also realized that we earned it. They're not going to have you in the main events and representing the company as the champions if you can't carry it.
Yeah.
So, that portion of it, we were both confident that we could handle it. But I'm being honest, I don't know that we could honestly, or I could honestly say, I thought it was going to be as big as it is. And it's even bigger today,
Yeah.
I wish
but back then it was exploding. I mean, Barry, did you feel the same way? Were you just like, not, just kind of keep your head down and say, and it's all happening, and you got to get up every day, and you got to find a gym, and you got to get to these house shows, and you show up to TV tapings every 3 weeks,
Yeah, you're busy working, but if it would have been nice to have that foresight, and I could have picked up a couple winning lottery tickets, maybe too.
Yeah, we'd all would have liked that as well. But it was some ride though, and when you look at back, being 3-time tag team champions, that's unbelievable. And really one of the most popular tag teams ever, and at that time.
Well, thank you. It's still a good ride. I mean, we still get 2 bookings a month. We could probably have more.
Yeah.
But, I teach, and Barry's got his own business. And if we were working 5 days a week, which we do, and then every weekend, it's like being on the road again. So, but, we have an opportunity to sit and chat with the fans, and they all have fond memories that remind us that, hey, that was pretty good.
Are the events or matches that really stand out to you guys when you look back?
Well, we were fortunate. We've been asked, and I know I've been asking Barry as well, favorite matches, favorite opponents.
Right.
If we listed 15, we'd leave out 15.
Right, exactly.
We were just happy and fortunate that we were in an era that there weren't very many bad wrestlers in the territory.
Mm-hmm.
There were a few, but most of the guys were main event quality. So if you get in the ring and the bell rings and you have a good referee and a good announcer, 4 guys work, you're going to have a decent match.
Yeah. So when it started to wind down after that period, and I know you had some health issues at the time, Bill, but what was it? What happened that a lot of people don't understand? Why it didn't go on for 5 or 6, 7 years.
Well, we wonder that too. The setup was, and the fans might not know. I went for 12 years, back and forth to Japan, anywhere from 10 to 14 weeks a year, and loved sushi and crab, and I built up a toxic level of iodine in my system. And one piece of shrimp went over the limit, and I had an anaphylactic reaction. Well, the office panicked. That's when they brought in Crush. And, they could have postponed a little bit, could have given Barry some time off. Yeah. And in 6 weeks, I was back. But they had already panicked, and I don't know what happened, but, Barry and I both to this. They they just didn't know what to do, which sometimes they don't know what to do with a lot of guys. It's not only us. So they make decisions. The head coach makes a decision, and he made a mistake, but he's not going to retract that decision.
All right.
So that's how it happened.
Yeah. So they bring in Brian Adams, and and no fault to Brian Adams when I say this, but it was never the same again. There was this lightning with you guys that you felt it every time you two stepped into the arena together. That it really wasn't. And did you guys feel that way at the time that damn it, this could have been even better, or was it okay? We had our time.
Well, I think that both Barry and I, and you're absolutely right. When people think of Demolition, they think of Axe and Smash.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't think of Crush. Yeah. And Crush was actually put in a rather tenuous situation. He wasn't as polished. His interviews weren't as good.
Yeah.
He knew that we did one-cut interviews and we're out, and he would make a mistake, and all of a sudden he's making a second mistake, and then he's self-conscious and he's making a third mistake.
Yeah.
And didn't know the little nuances that Barry and I had developed over the years. He was put in a situation that he was bound to fail at, and I think he was aware of that fact. I wish that it would have been different. We could have lasted a lot longer. They turned his heel way too fast.
Yeah.
They thought they had a remedy for it. It didn't work. But, we had a good time. We made money, and there's no hard feelings.
Yeah. And you, I don't know, I know that they say you stepped into a managerial role there for a while. You were kind of behind the scenes. But, Barry, what was going on in your mind at the time when you kind of saw this dissolving?
It was really tough because, your whole life is wrestling, and you get to
but also you knew what you had there, with Bill.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it was just an unfortunate thing that happened. Bill got sick, and there was nothing anybody could do, and it just happened. And Brian was the greatest guy in the world. He was a lot of fun, good guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just can't replace Bill. That was. He was the heart of the team. I followed his lead, and without him, I was leading, and it wasn't the same. It was a tough situation. It was hard, but you got to go on with life and keep going.
Yeah. Well, and you certainly did, and I certainly loved the Repo Man. I remember having a lot of a lot of fun with you. During that time, but it was, and it was a good gimmick. I mean, did you enjoy that as a singles? I really loved that gimmick. Mm-hmm.
But
you came up with it, right? Was it kind of it was like the Lone Ranger and the Riddler kind of combination, right?
I came up with it to end up being a baby face.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it for about 3 or 4 years. And then I wanted to kind of get out of wrestling, and I wanted to really do things for Make-A-Wish and do all that kind of stuff. And it just, they never turned me babyface, never wanted to, and it just kind of, it fizzled, and then that was the end of it. And then I put in my notice and I left.
Yeah.
And, I really, really was going to enjoy going out and doing other things than being in the wrestling part of it.
Yeah.
But it just never happened. So then that's when I went to WCW.
Right. And but was that an enjoyable experience? Because I'm trying to find somebody who really did enjoy that time there.
WCW?
Yeah.
That was like, it was stealing money. It wasn't even, I was so used to working hard, and it's just like right now in my life, I work hard.
Yeah.
And I work hard for my money, and when we were the Demolition, we worked really hard for our money. when we went down there, it was like you didn't even have to work and you got paid. And I think they almost got mad at you if you did work hard.
Yeah.
You know, it was it was the end of my wrestling career. I hated wrestling. I didn't even want to even be involved with it anymore.
Yeah.
That's how bad it got.
But they're throwing money at you. What are you going to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I worked 3 days, 4 days a month, and I got paid big money, and it was like, how can this be? That's why the territory's not there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but,
I don't know.
You know what? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but you know, folks will always remember, and whatever the span of time that was, you guys really were one of the most popular tag teams ever. And really, I vividly, when I recall that period of time, and you know, it was such a great period of time for tag teams. But you know, you really, if you think of tag teams really that stand out like that, you know, top five, you know, with the Road Warriors and the Hart Foundation, maybe, and you guys. I mean, there's few that really stand out like that, and you guys really have to be proud of that.
You know, and I know Bill is, and I am too. We are really proud of that. And what was so great about that time is there were so many tag teams that were so good. Anybody could have been in the position holding the belts at the time. Yeah. And it just happened to be us. We were picked to be the guys. And I think one of the reasons why was because we could have matches with every single team. It didn't matter if it was, you know, the Bulldogs, the Bushwhackers, whoever it was. We just kind of made the match to be the best match, not just to be the best two guys out there. You know, and I think that's what the whole was all about. So, you know, it's fun now. You go to all the conventions and you do all this stuff, and you know, all the fans are asking, you know, when are you going to get into the Hall of Fame, you know, and all this stuff, and you know, who knows? You know, we may never ever, because there are so many tag teams out there. And
I know, but it's also on your part too, Barry. I mean, and Bill as well. That you guys deserve to be in there. I know they've approached you. What would it take to accept that honor? Right
now, you know, Bill and I were kind of laughing about it not too long. When we were done with WrestleMania, and that's when I saw you at the WrestleCon.
Yeah.
We were kind of laughing, and we just thought, you know, if they asked us to go in, what would we really do now? You know, it's been, 20 years since we've been around the business, and the guys make, $5,000-$6,000, Bill, at the time when they go to the Hall of Fame?
Supposedly.
Yeah, so we were kind of laughing. I thought, you know, I think it would take probably $100,000 at least to bring us in for the Hall of Fame. And I thought, what a good number, because, you know, it's like my mother-in-law, she's the greatest woman of all time, and she has a church in Belmont, Mount Holly in North Carolina, and I'd give like 10,000 of that to her church, and then I'd take another 10,000 of that 100,000, and I'd give it to my son. He's a deputy in the sheriff's department for the K-9 unit, and then I'd probably give some more money. You know, I'm thinking of all these different charities. I'd give my partner 10,000. You know, but maybe the driver. But you know what I mean? It would. I would have to say it'd probably be $100,000 to even get us to go there.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, you probably give it all away. But as far you know that the fans out there really want to see you in.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Well, you know, it's nice because, like when we saw you at WrestleCon, a lot of the people come up and say the same thing.
Yeah.
And we appreciate their loyalty and them being fans of ours, and just remembering that we were in the business, and remembering things that made an imprint on their life. So it would be a nice footnote, but, you know, Barry and I have both said a number of times, we have no control over it. If we get in, great. If we don't get in, we're not going to lose sleep over it.
No.
So that's where we stand.
Yeah. But doesn't it amaze you when you go to these shows, and I know you guys get out there here and there, of just how appreciative, just how incredible these people who, and a lot of them were kids during that time, and you run into them, and they come up to you and say to you, "You have no idea, how you helped me through a tough time in my life," or there was just something I look forward to every week. And is that enough when you know what impact you had on these people's lives?
Well, what's nice is adults that come up. They were watching us when they were young, and they'll bring their kids and say, "Now these are the guys I used to look up to."
Yeah,
that's not.
How about for you, Barry?
It's the fans are the greatest people in the world. Those are the ones that made all of us, made you, made us, made the Heart Foundation. And when you get to see these people and these kids, and they're watching that 24/7, it's like the kids are fans just like their parents were now. Yeah. And it's pretty exciting when they say, "I can't." It was unbelievable when you hit that guy over the head with the chair or this. They know everything that you've ever done or anything that's done to you. Yeah. So but we're the luckiest guys in the world, Sean. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, you both look great. Folks, I saw him at WrestleCon when we were in New Orleans, and Bill, could you get us up to date what your life is about now, what you're doing, and then also you too, Barry?
Yeah, well, this is Barry. I own a printing company in Minnesota. We print on hard hats and safety vests and all that. It's been 13 years we've had the business, and it's doing very well. Like I say, I'm like the luckiest guy in the world. I got a great wife. My son's unbelievable. I got grandkids, and I ride in the car with these guys here, and it's just like the old days. We're on the road. In fact, we're almost to the town. We're at the exit. So,
all right, good timing.
What a great trip, John. It was great seeing you too.
Yeah.
But we're pretty lucky.
And how about and Bill? I know you've been an educator and a coach.
Well, I got into coaching before wrestling, and then got into wrestling. And after I got out, I went back, got recertified, and I work with kids at risk, psychiatric hospital setting for sexually abused kids, and I'm setting myself up to retire this year.
And how many events do you guys hit every year now? You guys get together?
We try to limit 2 per month. Well, I would say maybe 20.
Yeah.
20 events.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, where can people? I know you were at this event coming up, but where else can they see you? Say in the next couple of months.
Well, we're going to be in Canada for 3 days in May. We're in New Jersey in June for the, I think it's the Ring of Honor, no, Legends Ring or something. The promoter will kill me for not knowing it. But and then we're doing an event in Maryland.
Yeah,
and we're
going to be comedians in one show.
Yeah, we're doing a question and answer.
Oh, are you doing a live show?
Legends of Comedy for an event. I don't know how. We told him that the people will laugh, and we guarantee they will laugh.
Oh yeah, you guys were. That's another thing, folks. You didn't realize these guys were very, very amusing back in the day. They kept me laughing quite a bit. When is that show? Where and when is that taking place?
It's in, forgive me, it's in May. I think it's the 21st of May.
Now, is there a website or something they can catch up to you guys and find out what you're up to?
Barry, because that Twitter and that tweet and all this stuff, and I don't do all that stuff. So
you just show up.
Sean, I don't have a clue on half the stuff I do either.
I'm going to do my homework on that, and when I do my the pitch at the end of this thing, I will make sure that I tell folks how they can keep up with these two very I'm not going to say former, I'm going to say these two superstars who are still out there doing a lot. Bill Eadie, Barry Darsow, thank you so much, guys. It's been awesome. Folks, we've been on the road with them for the last hour and plus, and this is a very unique podcast. I'm going to remember it for a long time. You guys were two of my favorites, and you remain favorites.
No, really, we haven't left the airport yet. We've been driving around the airport.
You're like a plane. You're circling.
But, Sean, thank you. It was great seeing you again, too.
Yeah, and I will see you down the road. I'm getting out to a few of these things now and then, so I will see you guys. But it was great catching up. Thanks a lot.
You take care.